Considering the huge infrastructure deficit currently being experienced in the country and the enormous financial resources required to fill the gap in the face of dwindling resources and the inability of our annual budgetary provisions to breach the infrastructure deficit, it has become necessary to resort to prudent external borrowing to bridge the financial gap, which will largely be applied to key infrastructure projects, namely power, railway, and roads projects, among others. The total cost of the projects and programs under the borrowing rolling plan is $29.960 billion US, made up of proposed projects and programs loan of $11.274 billion US, special national infrastructure project $10.686 billion US, Euro bonds of $4.5 billion US, and federal government budget support of $3.5 billion US.
Well, that's what we're focusing on starting today on the program. We're starting with that one, and we're crossing over to Abuja. Mark,
Thank you, Chamberlain. What we do have with us, the Director General of the Voice of Nigeria, Mr. Osita Okechukwu. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Good morning.
That's the Speaker, Yakubu Dogara, reading out the President's request for this external borrowing plan, $29.960 billion we're asking for. And it's a lot of money. People feel that, why are we asking to borrow so much money at a time when we only just got out of debt?
And I think Mr. President means well. On one hand, Mr. President had always had Nigeria first in his mind. And he came in, and unfortunately for Nigeria, the price of oil crashed to below $50 per barrel. And unfortunately as well, not much savings was done by the previous regimes during the days of the unprecedented oil revenue and the bomber days. So Mr. President said, one, he made some states, a lot of states, did not pay even salaries for some 18 months. And he said, let's start with the human beings first. Some people argue then, Mr. President, get to the road, get to power. He said, if Nigerians are hungry, some workers had not been paid for a good month, 12 months, and you tell me to move into the roads, I will not do so. So he started what he called the bailout funds. At the end of the day, the militants started in the Niger Delta. So not much money is coming into the coffers. So what we witnessed was a recession. In order not to go to deep depression, Mr. President said, wow, let's look into the kitty. And luckily, we have two prudent managers, Mr. President and the Vice President. And they went around the whole world and started looking for funds. Just like a family that was struck by famine. What will you do? You have to look outwards. And luckily, the good thing about the loan is, one, it's not a question of handing cash over to Nigerians. No. Some are coming in the nature of equipment, targeted to specific areas, as you mentioned, power, rail lines, agric. So it's not as if somebody's taking raw cash that will run into private hands now. That's not the issue. The issue is that when it happened to America in the 30s, what Franklin D. Roosevelt did, and all the economists that advised, like John Maynard Keynes, even the John Rockefeller, they said, you must spend your way out of recession. If you don't do so, you go into a great depression.
And the only way we can do this is to borrow to spend our way out of a recession?
If you do not borrow, you run a mono economy. What you have in the kitty is crude oil for the past 30, 40 years. And the price is low. And then there are the militants on the other hand. He's even negotiating with the militants by tomorrow and the leaders of the Niger Delta, because he's saying, look, gentlemen, this is about your community. This is about your local government. This is about your states. Before even you talk of Nigeria, or before you talk of President Muhammad Buhari. So what do we do? And don't forget that Mr. President had always had his base of support from the mass line. So his thinking had always been, what do I do for the people to leave them out of poverty? And if you don't have major infrastructural development, you cannot leave the people out of poverty. That's what he's looking at. Look at the Mambila, where he's planning to devote about $4.8 billion. The Mambila will generate about 4,000 megawatts, which is more than what we have on the ground today. And he's also going to irrigate agriculture, massive agricultural land. It's not just about power. It's also about agriculture. Because if you know what the Ministry of Water Resources in their roadmap have about the Mambila, I think it's almost about 20,000 hectares.
The PDP
that will be irrigated.
The People's Democratic Party is kicking against this loan request. They are saying that the National Assembly should not approve it because they know the amount of work that had to be done during President Obasanjo's time to ensure that we're able to get some debt relief. I do recall also that the former Minister of Finance, had raised an alarm over the level of our internal debt. I mean, our internal debt level. She said we're still okay as at that time with external borrowing plans, but internally, the amount of money we had borrowed, using federal government sovereign debt was, becoming to such an extent that people were beginning to, fear that this could become unmanageable. But she said external debt plans were okay. Are we about to get into trouble on both the internal front and the external front as well?
No, please, let me first and foremost refer to the one you talked about, the PDP. What I normally say is the PDP paradox. On one hand, in spite of the loot that went on under the regime, this is the first time Nigerian people are witnessing that the defense budget was converted into a slush fund, dished out. That's under PDP.
But they are right that they were able to get some debt relief during the
No. The debt relief,
time, aren't they?
We then opposed it. We opposed that there's nowhere in the world where you collectively $12.4 billion at a time, and you say you're paying debt. Don't forget about that debt. Let's not even go about that. I don't want to go into the details because even in 1984, President Muhammad Buhari, as head of state, investigated the debt profile. He told us a story of when the committee he set up went to somewhere in Anambra State, where they borrowed for a carpet industry. Luckily, it was combined with the creditors, the Paris Club and London Club officials. Mr. President said he asked them, you borrowed the Anambra State government then, so amount of money for a carpet industry in Ihiala. Where is the carpet industry? You want us to pay you. We're going to pay. But where is the carpet industry? That's just one example. So let's not go into that area. If you go into that area, you ask yourself, $12.4 billion. We argued then, please place this money on a cocktail of 20 billion requests. Tell the world you want to do power, 20 billion. But I have 12.4. Yes, you are paying about $1 billion annually as debt because they did not even want to investigate the actual debt. But let's leave about that. But we are saying, if you are paying $1 billion yearly and you place a request to the international community that you have $12 billion, please, I'm looking for 30. What will be the consequence? They will rush you with their money. And today,
just a moment. Regardless of the criticism of whether or not it was wise to have been seeking a debt relief as at that time, we were able to secure a debt relief as a country.
No. What we're saying, right? Please, what I'm saying, the gross unemployment you have today, the insecurity you have today is a result of that.
I'm simply asking, were we able to secure a debt relief as at that time or not?
No. What you are saying, what I should ask you as well, was it, when looking back hindsight, did it make economic sense? didn't make political sense. It didn't make socio-economic sense.
That's what I'm saying.
It did
regardless
not.
of the criticism,
it did not.
regardless of the criticism, regardless of what.
It's not about the criticism.
It depends on who's looking at it and from
Don't
what angle.
forget.
Were we able to secure debt relief or not? That's the question.
The answer is yes. But what I'm asking as well is that you could see the consequences of throwing away, almost. Because you could have used that to reflect your economy, be able to pay the debts on a gradual run. America is owing over 20 trillion to the world. If you don't owe, you leave your people in hunger and abject poverty. Why did our schools collapse? Why did our hospitals collapse?
Because we got out of debt?
Because of the fact that you promised that if we get out of debt, we'll use the funds to reflect our critical social and fiscal infrastructure. Did PDP do that? Look at the rail they awarded. They awarded Lagos to Kano. It's about 1,300 kilometers at 8.3 billion. Today, that's the old gauge. Today, in this borrowing we are doing, 1.3 billion is to modernize that rail line. Is that good management that PDP can refer to? Is it good management that they fleeced off $16 billion?
Is this still about the PDP, really?
No. What I'm saying is that you said they are criticizing the loan. They are criticizing the loan. On one hand, that's the paradox I'm talking about. On one hand, they tell us, don't talk about yesterday. Okay. On the other hand, they are saying we shouldn't borrow. We are borrowing because of the interests of Nigeria.
Mr. Kuchika, I'm afraid we have to take a moment now. When we come back, we will talk about, the alleged... the monies that are said to have been recovered and why we can't use that to reflect the economy. We'll be back in just a moment. Do join us again.